Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Old Gold and Black for this little video where I'm telling you who I want to win the competitions that are left in the football season this year. We're going to go through the Premier League to the playoffs, the FA Cup, the Champions League and the Europa League as well. So starting off, the main competition, the biggest title race in about 7 years. Really interesting, and two top quality teams. In previous seasons when there has been a title race, they haven't both been this good. There's always been one that's been slightly less favoured than the other, but this time you could have Liverpool end up at 97 points and not win the title. It just shows an incredible effort from both teams, and that they've come through all these different challenges, like Man City going to Burnley yesterday to win that game, only just, but still managing to do it. And Liverpool winning and winning and winning, and it was all really goes back down to that game at Christmas time that Liverpool lost, the only game of the season. That's what's the difference at the moment. Fantastic season. Really enjoyable, but I really want Manchester City to win the title. I think Liverpool have been great, and I enjoyed watching them Molineux at Christmas time when they came to Wolves. I thought Van Dijk was one of the best centre-backs I've seen. Salah was fascinating watching him, although he's not been that good this season in comparison to last season. He's still been an extremely good player in the Premier League, and the number of goals that he's got has been superb to follow that up from last season, and the criticism he's received really for his diving and stuff like that is probably part of the reason why I don't want Liverpool to win. But I don't think it's really that I don't want Liverpool to win, it's that I do want Manchester City to win. I think that the brand of football that they play and that the players they've got are the best in the division, and that they should be rewarded for that with the league title. I think Kevin De Bruyne, if he'd have been fit all season, they'd have won the league by now already. I really like that Kompany has been there for such a long time and is really a link between the previous Man City regime and the current regime. A little bit like Conor Cody is for us, I suppose, and Matt Doherty, that link to the past. I love Sergio Aguero. I think he's one of the best strikers that the Premier League's ever seen, certainly in the last decade. I wasn't a big fan of Raheem Sterling before this season, but I think he was criticised quite heavily in the World Cup, and then he's come back into the Premier League this season. He's sort of, under Guardiola, has reinvented himself, and has, I think, should have been the player of the season, because Van Dijk has only really won the player of the season, I think, because of how much he improved a terrible Liverpool backline, whereas Raheem Sterling couldn't really improve that front line at Man City already because it was superb. I think that the pressure of the Champions League will play a part as well, because Liverpool will do quite a lot of travelling in the next week or so. They go to Barcelona on Wednesday and then Newcastle away on Saturday evening before returning for the home leg against Liverpool, and then of course Wolves at Anfield on the last game of the season. So that game against Newcastle has been earmarked slightly for them to possibly drop some points. Man City, of course, do not have that problem. They have only got Leicester at home and Brighton away to face. They don't have any major travelling to do until the last day of the season, where they have to travel down to Brighton. So I think that could play a little bit of a part in this little run-in now that we have. And also, just to mention Pep Guardiola, if you haven't already watched it, you need to watch the documentary Take the Ball, Pass the Ball. I watched it last week. I know it's been out for a long time, but it's absolutely superb. If you haven't watched it as well, watch the Man City documentary on Amazon Prime. Really interesting watch, and very enjoyable as well. That leads me quite nicely onto the FA Cup as well, which will be Manchester City against Watford. Now, part of me, I've got a vested interest, obviously, because if Watford win the FA Cup and Wolves finish 7th, then Wolves will not qualify for European football. It looks as if Wolves should finish 7th if they beat Fulham, and if Leicester don't beat Manchester City, then Wolves should finish in 7th place. And I hope that Manchester City win the FA Cup, of course, as well, purely for that reason, because I want to see Wolves in a European competition. There is that slight bitterness towards them after the FA Cup semi-final, and the way that we threw the game away, and it should be us in that final. We were so close to it, but it's not to be. But purely for Wolves-based factors, I think that, I want Manchester City to win. I also think that Guardiola will not lose a final. He doesn't lose finals, and I can't see him losing this one. Now let's just move down into the Championship for a little bit, because I think Wolves fans have got a very big interest in the playoffs at the moment, because of course Aston Villa and West Bromwich Albion are going to be probably playing each other. I think it's pretty unlikely that they won't be now, following the results at the weekend. So Wolves fans clearly are going to be watching this game. However, who do Wolves fans want to win that game? You can let me know in the comment section down below, but I'm going to give you my opinion now. And I think it's quite an interesting one. We, of course, had quite a good rivalry, I thought, although the Villa fans, it seemed to me, took it a little bit too seriously. Lots of Wolves fans, of course, were taunting them, saying mind the gap, and they took it a little bit personally and kept bringing up that they were a much bigger club. They've got a bigger stadium, and the attendance cup, of course, which was won by Villa last year in the Midlands. Congratulations. Albion's a difficult one, really, because in my lifetime, Wolves have very rarely played Albion, really. Apart from that spell in 2006-07 where we played each other about 5 times with the playoffs and the FA Cup, we haven't played Albion often. And it's actually been, for me, Blues have been a bigger rivalry because we were sort of going for promotion against each other, trying to stay up in the division together in the Premier League. So they have been more of a competitive rivalry for me than the Albion or the Villa, of course. But I do miss that fierce local rivalry and going into work or seeing people around the place, playing five-a-side with people who support Villa and Albion. And because it's been such a long time since Wolves have played Albion, I'm going to be backing Albion to get through to the playoff final. I think as well, Aston Villa have been very, very cocky over the last couple of weeks on this amazing run that they've been on. 10 wins in a row is, incredible, and they have been playing some great football since Grealish has come back as well. However, the arrogance at which that they've shown towards the division and the competition has been, I don't think, particularly very good. And that's the fans, not the team, the fans. I've seen pictures on Twitter, pubs selling tickets for coaches for the playoff final when they haven't even finished this regular season yet. Whereas Albion, although it is absolute carnage and chaos behind the scenes there, and if they don't get promoted, Lord knows what the owner will do next. James Shan, the academy manager who's somehow found himself in charge of the first team, seems to be doing a fairly good job and has steadied the ship somewhat. But likewise for Villa, if they don't get promoted this season, the financial implications that will have on their team are massive. One of them is going to be in massive trouble come the end of the playoff semi-finals in about 2 weeks' time. But yeah, for the playoffs, I'm actually backing Leeds United because, and I know that I might get a lot of stick for this, but I've got a friend who's a Leeds fan and he follows them all over the country, watching them as often as he can. And I do feel sorry for Leeds because they are a big club, and I am a little bit tired of seeing these mediocre clubs and small clubs coming up to the Premier League and having their one season, get a load of money and then come back down. There's no ambition in those teams to me, and Leeds would present some sort of a challenge and competition in the Premier League. They would come up and they've got the fan base to compete. They're a huge, huge club with a massive history and they belong in the Premier League. In my mind, there's a group of clubs that are being badly run for the last 20 years, like Sheffield Wednesday, one of them, Nottingham Forest as well. Teams that should be Premier League teams that have just been mismanaged. Villa are one of them as well, of course. But I want to see Leeds get back there. They got relegated in 2004 with Wolves, who've been promoted twice since then and have spent 4 seasons in the Premier League since then. Leeds deserve it. I like Bielsa. I like the way that he manages. But I think they're going to struggle. I think they'll just about get past what looks like it'll be Derby in the 6th place for the playoffs. But it's going to be a very, very competitive, very, very good playoff. And finally, the UEFA Champions League and the Europa League. I won't spend too much time talking about the Europa League because I don't know much about that at all. I'm not even completely sure who both Arsenal and Chelsea are playing, but I know that they're involved. So I'll just briefly touch on it, that I don't like Chelsea. So if either of those 2 English teams are going to win it, I would prefer Arsenal. They had a long time without winning European trophies. They had got very close in the semi-final, I think it was last year. So I want them to do well. Although, having watched them very recently and seen their performance yesterday against Leicester, they are absolutely terrible and they've got no chance of winning that competition. And then finally, the Champions League. I really hope that it's an all-British final, but I can't really see that happening. Spurs and Liverpool would be an amazing final in Madrid. But I think that Barcelona are going to edge past Liverpool. I think Liverpool are so set on winning the title. If Man City were to drop points at the weekend against Leicester, and then they're going to be thinking that second leg, that it's all up for grabs at Anfield. I think they might take their eye off the ball and lose in that second leg. Spurs, I really hope that they do beat Ajax, but Ajax are an incredible force. The team that they've knocked out so far, Real Madrid and Juventus, it's going to be very, very interesting. And I haven't, obviously, with Real Madrid dominating this tournament for so long, we haven't had a tournament, we haven't had semi-finals of the Champions League that have been this unpredictable, really. Any of the combinations of final are up for grabs, I think. I would probably make Barcelona the favourites at the moment, but Liverpool are a very, very strong team, and the pace that they've got could cause Barcelona some problems in their defence. It'll be very interesting to see, and I can't wait for the two games this week. Ajax have been incredible to watch as well. The way that they've built this young team, it's going to be interesting to see, really interesting to see how that Ajax team develops, and if they can keep them together, because that's been their problem, of course, over the years, is that they cannot keep those players together. They end up leaving for bigger clubs. I think that's just about everything covered. I can't give you an honest opinion about League One and League Two and their playoffs or the promotion. I do hope that Portsmouth come up because I do like Kenny Jackie. Sunderland as well. I kind of hope that they do well, but it looks like it's going to be a very tasty playoffs as well in that division. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below for any of those that I've just mentioned. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and why not pop the bell on, eh?